Christ meeting in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Dr. Charles Cobb, who was Ben Chavis's boss, sent a note around asking for all black delegates at the General Synod to come to his room at lunch when we broke for lunch. Now, the General Synod, 700 delegates, about 30 black. So we all made our way to Charles Cobb's room. I was the last one to get there. And when I got there, he started signifying, "Oh, Dr. Wright is here. We can begin now. Let's give Dr. Wright a hand. Let's give him." So I tipped across all the persons, some seated on the bed, some seated on the credenza, some seated in the furniture, sofa and chair. Went to the far corner of the room and leaned up against the wall. And Charlie closed the door, the only door out of the room, and said, "I invited you all here today because I want you to hear from the president of the Gay Caucus." I wanted to walk back across all those people and get out of the room because I was homophobic and didn't know I was homophobic. It was just how I was raised. And so I put on a poker face to look at this guy. And the guy blew my mind. He blew my mind so badly that I couldn't talk about it for 4 years. And 4 years later, I preached about it. I just didn't talk about it. In that sermon, Good News for Homosexuals. And after preaching that sermon, it opened up the doors in our church and in our congregation for not only gay and lesbian, bisexual, transgender persons to come talk to me, but for their parents and family members who've been wrestling with, what do we do about this? And one of the books that we found was very helpful for families and for parents like Mary herself. Mary was a woman who found out when her son was 22, 23 that he was gay. And when she went to talk to her pastor about it, they put him out of the church. Both of y'all going to hell, him and you. And so she began her own search for what does the Bible really say about homosexuals. I was talking this afternoon about the difference between what the Bible says and what translations say. The word homosexual is nowhere in the Bible. In English, the translators took the word pederasty and pedophile and made that homosexual. They're not the same thing. And after she did her own investigation, she read the Johns Hopkins study, she read what the Association of Psychologists, American Psychological Association said. She now is an HIV activist person. She joined another church. And that book was very helpful, as is Peter Gomes, G-O-M-E-S, his book called The Good Book, which is about the Bible. He has a chapter on homosexuality that helps people to work through their understandings. The most helpful thing that I have found in terms of literature was an 8.5 by 11 two-sheet printing on both sides, put out by the denomination several years ago. 2001 is when my dad died, so it'd be 2001. Good News was a publication of the Board for Homeland Ministries of the United Church of Christ. They printed Good News once a quarter, and in this quarter edition, a father like Mary Borheck, a father found out his son was gay and conducted a year-long Bible study on what does the Bible really say about gays and lesbians, same gender-loving, consensual relationships. What does the Bible say? And at the end of a year's time, he said the most eye-opening lesson for him was how intellectuals, like people here at Fresno, people with advanced degrees, never come to grips with the word homophobia. Homo means what? Same. Phobia is what? Fear. What is fear? An emotion. And until you deconstruct the emotional blockage that a person has when they come to the table to talk about sexuality, heterosexuality or homosexuality, I can give you the entire World Book Encyclopedia. I can give you the World Book Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica. I can give you the whole internet. But you can't hear a word I'm saying until we deconstruct whatever it is that's causing the blockage emotionally. And what causes that blockage? And that guy in the restaurant had been in the joint and been raped in the joint. That's not a homosexual relationship, that's rape. But he didn't want to hear anything at all about people being born same gender loving, genetically wired. He didn't want to hear, because all he had blocking him was what happened to him in prison. Same thing with one of our members, whose husband was on the DL and didn't tell her. She's got AIDS. She don't want to hear nothing about Peter Gomes, Mary Borheck, nothing what the Association of Psychologists say. All she knows is that man gave her AIDS. And until you can deconstruct that emotional blockage, there can be no conversation between the individuals that makes any sense.
That's where the hoods are as far as
name calling and hard
pimps
feelings.
And the way they feel towards the churches. There is no
to talk to him,
restoring
he read that sermon, Good News for Homosexuals, and he wanted to challenge me on it. That God is, there's some people who are born, they're going straight to hell, the way they're born. That help?
Yeah,
Mary Borheck, Borhek. My son Eric is the name of the book.